Back. So next step is going to be getting rid of the list in the actual view right here, or the UI, and get that list and start using the one from the customer repository. Now to do that, for now, I'm going to break one of the very important things that we use. The user interface should not know the infrastructure, it should not have direct access to it. It's okay to use dependency injection, but for now, we're just going to have direct access between these two guys. And that means that we're going to have the hardened line right here instead of the dotted line that you see. So we're going to have direct access. Don't worry, we'll fix that later. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these two guys because I'm not allowed anymore to have my own local list. I want the view of the program to actually start using the list from the repository. How do we do that? Well, first of all, we need dependencies. We need to know about these projects. So we need to know both about the core project to start using the interface here, and we need to know about the customer static data to know about the repository implementation down here. So I'll just add those two. And as again, you'll notice that that means that now we have access to this guy, the core, and the UI also have access to this guy, which is kind of not the perfect scenario, but I'll get back to that later. The next thing I need to do is kind of make a static, because we only have one file right here, we're going to make a static customer repository right here. There we go. And that's going to just be called customer repository. And let's just implement that, or get that using statement in here from the domain service. And then the first thing I want to do when I start my main for now is just say that customer repository is going to be equal to a new customer repository. And that new customer repository is then from what we call the infrastructure layer down here. And we need the parentheses, and we need to get rid of the I. It's so helpful. Sometimes the helpfulness is just too much, and we'll import that. Now notice the interface is from up here in the domain service, and the implementation is from down here. Right now, that's just the way we do it. So now we have a customer repository available, and that means that every place inside our system where we right now are using the old customers list that we had before, we need to now change that into actually using the customer repository and letting the database take care of figuring out, or the data source take care of figuring out how to store an actual customer. Let's just get rid of this ID right here because I shouldn't be allowed to take care of that. That should be my data source. And then instead of adding directly to the customers list that we had before, we're going to use the create function that we made inside our repository. And then we're going to add this customer one right here. There we go. That was all we had to do. And let's just get rid of this customer right here. Now again, we'll do it again, create a customer 2 down here. Again, I'm just reusing the code we already have available. So creating that customer 2 right here, we're not allowed to put in an ID. And then let's also create him inside our new database right here. Now notice, I just moved the responsibility of how to store data from the view or the UI all the way down to the infrastructure down here. That's now the boss of how we create a new repository, or sorry, a new customer inside our data source right here. Sweet. Jumping back to the program, scrolling further down, what else do we have that fails now? Well, we should have this guy, find customer by ID, because right now the way that he gets a customer is again looking inside the local list that we had before. We don't want to do that anymore. We want to use the repository. So let's just say customer repository dot get by ID, or read by ID in this case, and send in the ID that we just found right here. And we'll return that guy, and then we're done. But again, we just moved the responsibility of working with data source from the UI or the program right here into the repository. So now the repository knows how to do it. It should be the UI's concern how to do it. The next one is delete a customer. Again, notice right here, the UI knows now that we need to find someone, we need to do something with them, and we need to remove them. Again, it shouldn't be the UI's job to do that. So we are going to say, instead of actually finding customer by ID, where do we use this function? Let's try and go navigate here and find the reference for delete customer. Then it says you're using it right here. Okay, so delete customer is up here with the selection. So that pretty much means that when I get to this point, I call the find customer by ID right here, where it asks for a specific customer ID. and then I end up actually returning that customer. There we go. And then I can now, if the customer is not null, I can try and delete him. So I'll use the customer repository, delete, and then I'll send in the ID of the customer I want to delete. This is kind of overkill right now, but we'll just keep it for now because I'm actually going to the backend or the database, finding the customer, and then I'm going to use the ID for that. But just to keep the program as it is and just change the places where we talk to the database, I'm going to do it like this. So adding a customer is down here. And again, let's just keep it for now. We have the read line, blah, 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 blah. And then in the end, we have some kind of customer available. Var cust equal. And then again, we cannot control the ID from in here. In the end, we just want to again say, dear repository, customer repository, please create a new customer right here and just call it cust. There we go. File 1, list all customers. How do we do that? Well, we need to get all customers, and again, the customer repository has a way for us to read all, right? So there we go. And let's just actually put this in a local variable. So we'll say var custs for all customers, and then we'll kind of read them all here and just put them in here. Custs. There we go. So now we pretty much moved the logic of saving and working with customers. We've moved that from the program into the repository. Okay, now it's not perfect yet. There's still a lot of stuff that I want to improve, but now at least it's the repository's responsibility to persist our data. Right now we do it in a list, but later on we'll do it in an SQL database, but this is fine for now. So let's end this lesson and see you on the next lesson. Have fun.